All right, let's try a problem together. If you will look at your worksheet that says Algebra 1 Graphing Calculator Practice, let's read the directions. It says graph each equation on your graphing calculator, choose an appropriate window for each graph, draw and record your window, answer each of these questions using the graphs, round to the nearest thousandth. Okay, so let's just do number 1 together. It costs 49 cents to send a letter that weighs up to 13 ounces. Each additional ounce costs an additional 21 cents. The equation C of W equals 21 100ths times W minus 13 plus 49 100ths gives the cost C for a letter that weighs W. This equation is only valid for letters weighing at least 13 ounces. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is graph that, find the right window, and then we're going to sketch what we see over here. All right, so what you'll need to do is make sure your calculator is turned on. And if you have anything, I wonder if that looks funny because it's plugged in. I'm just realizing that this might look kind of funny on the screen. So you want to, sorry, my calculator's charging right now. We want to make sure that our calculator's turned on, and we want to go to y equals first to put our function in. Let's see if I can move this a little closer. Okay, that's a little better. All right, so when I go to y equals, I still have some stuff that I graphed recently. If I want to get rid of that, I can just go and I can hit the word clear, that's right under those arrows, and then arrow down and hit clear again. All right, so now I've gotten rid of what was in my y equals screen. So I want to go back to y1, and it doesn't matter really which of these you use. I always use y1. And we want to type that equation in exactly as it appears. Instead of c of w, though, that's going to be your y. So the equation that we're really using is y equals 0.21 times, in parentheses, w minus 13 plus 0.49. So this is what we're going to type in to our calculator. All right. So it's really this equation, but that's just y equals instead of c of w. So if you look at, I can't have them both in the screen, so you can look at your page as we go, but we're in y equals. I can type 0, my decimal's right next to 0, 2, 1, then parentheses are right here above the 8 and the 9. So I'm going to do open parentheses. Now, for w minus 13, and I should have changed this to an x when I just rewrote this, there is no variable w. We're just going to use x. Everything that goes in the calculator has to have the variables y and x. So when I get to that variable, I need to go to this button that has x, t, theta, and n on it. So x minus 13, close parentheses, plus 0.49. So take a second. You can always pause this video. Take a second and make sure that that's what you have. All right. Don't just go and hit graph yet. I mean, actually, I take that back. Let's hit graph and see what happens. All right. You might notice if your window was the same from the example we did earlier, you might see a graph down here. You might not see anything at all. That's because we have to change the window or the domain and range every time we graph. So we've got to pick a domain and range that will fit this function. And when in doubt, you can guess and check, but you can also use just some logical reasoning. So if I see that my graph is way down here, I probably don't need all of this information that's up here. So if I go into my window, and I set this earlier from my example, this went up to 250. I might just start with making my graph go up to 20. And now let's just hit graph and see what happens. So I didn't really change. I have negative 10 for my x-min. X max is 30. Leave the scale alone. Negative 10 for y-min and 20 for y-max. All right, now I can see my graph better. but it doesn't mean that this is the graph that I want. And this is what's so hard about this, because you really gotta use your brain and think here. If we go back to this problem, let's reread it. So C, or what is our y variable essentially, is cost. I'm gonna write out to the side y equals cost. X is the weight. X equals weight. If we look, it says the equation's only valid for letters weighing at least 13 ounces. So that means that I really don't want to look at any X values that are less than 13. So I could go to window, and instead of X minimum being -10, in fact, that doesn't make any sense. -10 ounces isn't a possible weight. I could start at 13. I could also start at 10 just to get a little more of the graph in the window. And then, I don't know, it seems like 30 might be fine, so I might leave my X max at 30. When I think about my Y minimum value, Y we said represents the cost. Well, I know it could never cost -$10. Like, that doesn't make sense. So I might start at where Y equals 0. All right, now let's look at this graph. Okay. So now we've got a graph that looks like this. So on our sheet, we're asked to sketch this graph and to also write in the domain and range. So here's what we need to do. Let's see if I can get these in the same. We want to just sketch what we see here. So I see a straight line. It's not perfect. In fact, my line I drew is maybe a little too steep. Man, I wish I'd done that in pencil. I would have fixed it, but whatever. We'll move on. Then we want to type in the window that we put. So from X, our minimum was 10 to 30. This is interval notation here. 10 to 30 is my X interval, or my domain. For Y, it's 0 to 20. So 0 to 20 is my range. All right, you're gonna have to watch the next video to answer questions A, B, and C.